Hello, welcome to Talking Bollocks with me, your host, Howard H. Smith. You know me, come on, you've been listening for a while now. I am lead singer in UK thrash band Acid Rain, whose album, The Age of Entitlement, is about to turn 1 year old and have its first anniversary. Isn't that quite scary? I also run this here podcast. Hello, welcome back, or welcome for the first time. I am also the host of the official Motorhead podcast, The Motorcast. It is coming soon, don't you worry, I'll keep you informed. And I also do stand-up comedy as the character Keith Platt, and I have had the pleasure of doing my first two shows since lockdown last week in Newcastle under Lyme, and it was weird, but fun, but weird, but fun. So, hello, welcome, my lovely listeners. Hello, are you on an emotional corona coaster? I know I have been. It's up and down and all things are changing all the time. Well, what the hell? Let's fuck that off and let's just talk about the world of metal, shall we? And let's start with, unfortunately, not the best of news. Man injured by stage diver at Agnostic Front concert awarded $2 million settlement. So, there you go, guys. That is why sometimes there's a barrier and sometimes audiences are told not to dive. If there isn't the appropriate cover that the band have or the venue have, then without an insurance company to pay that kind of money out, you can see the end of a venue, the end of a band even. Very nearly ended Fishbone, an injury to an audience member, but that was actually one of the band who created the issue there, diving off a balcony. So actually, if you think about it, yeah, that's pretty fucking stupid. But nothing I wouldn't do or haven't done in the past, so I'm pretty fucking stupid. But if you know this podcast, you already know that. So, how's it going? You know, the world of metal is a funny old place. That's what I'm concentrating on for the first few minutes here. That's the format, if there is a format at all of this podcast. That's kind of it. So, what's been going on? Rob Halford has brought a book out. Confess, it is called. I confess I haven't listened. I'm not going to get the audio book. I'm not one of those lazy twats. I will be getting the book. I will be reading it. I just haven't at the moment, so I can't really give you any particular nuggets about that. One thing that is for sure is that John Bush has made it very clear that he is more than happy to perform with Anthrax and Joey. And Neil Turbin has made it more than clear that he's prepared to perform with Anthrax and Joey and John. In fact, the only person we haven't heard from is Joey Belladonna, and my guess is he's thinking, look guys, I'm the singer in Anthrax, I always have been, I always will be, so, you know, this is it, and no, I'm not interested. I suspect that Joey has no interest in pulling any of that stuff off, I really do. But let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. What else has been happening in the world of metal? Well, quite an interesting one, actually. It's about Megadeth, and during an appearance on Aftershocks Tremors Live, Dave Ellefson was asked how he reacts to fans sometimes not responding to certain Megadeth albums that favourably, i.e. 99's Risk and Super Collider in 2013. And his response was, when we were doing the Super Collider record, there were Risk-like moments that kept coming into my head, and I was just going, I don't know, I think I've seen this movie before, and I just kind of had to go with it, because those weren't really my songs, and I'm there as a member of the band and a member amongst members, so we go as a team, so there are these moments. Well, it's funny that, because prior to the release of Super Collider, Dave Mustaine referred to Junior, mentioning that this stuff was like early stuff, like Killing Is My Business stuff, and he's usually a pretty good judge of music. So, maybe he did say that, and maybe he meant one particular song or a part of a song, and then Dave decided to take that and throw it out into public, and it created false expectations, whatever. But all I can say is, ultimately, if you are thinking of Risk-like moments, no, I think let's not just go with it and help work on the songs. Let's actually put our hands up and say, you know what? Nah, this is sounding like risk stuff. Are you sure we're on the right path here? Should we really be going this route? I'm just saying, as somebody who's in a band, I'm just saying. Now, I know it's Mustaine's band, but surely Alefson has known him long enough to be able to say, look, Dave, I think we might be going down a risk path here. I mean, that's not too I'm not being unreasonable, am I? Tell me if I am, Tweet me, call me a twat, whatever. Which reminds me, at Talking Bollocks. Bollocks spelt with a Z on the end. That is where you can hit me up. Also on Facebook. In fact, on loads of different formats, including Patreon, where you can get loads of extra stuff. But more about that later. Next up is, of course, Death Dealer, featuring former Manowar guitarist Ross the Boss. Conquered Lands album due in November. Now, for those of you who have been listening regularly, you'll know that Death Dealer's press releases tend not to hold back. In fact, they usually mention words like legends and originators. In fact, basically laying claim to pretty much creating everything from metal to punk. And I find them hilarious because they are so over the top. But that must be the way that they want it to come across. For instance, the Death Dealer record, the Death Dealer sound mixes classic heavy metal with elements of thrash, power, and epic stylings, all wrapped up around powerful choruses that compel the listener to sing along at the top of their lungs with fists held high in the air. I mean, This makes Rob Flynn saying the new Machine Head album is going to be fucking crushing, or Corey Taylor's famous quotes about one of his Stone Sour average middle of the road records saying we caught lightning in a bottle. It makes them sound like they're being reasonable. I mean, the sound mixes classic heavy metal with elements of thrash, power, and epic stylings, all wrapped around powerful choruses that compel the listener to sing along at the top of their lungs with their fists held high. By the power of Death Dealer, I compel you. That's an Exorcist reference. That's not a cough. I'm not laughing at myself. It's a cough because I was doing a stupid voice. Says Ross, we have been working on this record for quite a while now, and it feels like the perfect time to get this out and give the people a kick-ass heavy metal record. It also seems like it was meant to be that the album comes out during this time period because people could use this uplifting rock and roll to put some positive energy back in their lives. I fucking hate it when anyone's music is metal and they refer to it as rock and roll. That does irritate me, okay? Unless it's Motorhead, because to be fair, that Motorhead were the loudest rock and roll band ever, that I totally accept. But this, okay, when you are in your own press release calling it heavy metal with elements of thrash, power, and epic stylings, then how come it's rock and roll? It can't be all those things. It just can't be. I'm saying, rock and roll, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, rock, 4 o'clock. No, that's fucking rock and roll, right? Adds Stu, who's also in the band. Not sure what he does, but let's hear from him. We all worked really hard on this thing, and I'm really happy with how it sounds. All the people that helped me with the production really came through. Isn't that nice? Somebody who's not claimed that it is basically, the greatest thing ever recorded. Making an album is fun, and I look forward to the fans' reaction to it, of course, but I really look forward to performing some of these ripping speed screamers live on the stage with the guys. Says Mike LePound. Well, that's not going to be happening for a while, and it was nice and tempered at the beginning, but it ended up being ripping speed screamers, which is, anyone listening, have you ever heard the phrase to describe music or a song or a particular album, ripping speed screamers? Anyone? Ripping speed screamers. I turned 50 a few months ago. I've been around the world of metal for quite a while. Never heard that. Never. I'm not saying that doesn't mean it's bona fide. I'm just saying it sounds a bit fucking weird. Anyway, that album, as you are aware, is going to be coming out. And God bless them, by the time it comes out, I'm sure they'll have added country, blues, and probably rave to the list of musical styles that they cover. What else has been going on? Volbeat has been super creative working on the new music. So just creative then. Okay? You can't just put the word super in front of everything to try and emphasise that it's better. Yeah? I don't feel super good. I don't feel super great. I feel good. I feel great. Putting super on the front of it, no, doesn't work. Okay? It doesn't fucking work. I've said it before. I've said it again. More better? No. Yeah? And funnily enough, watching something on TV the other day, he didn't get no help. The poor guy didn't get no help. Let me explain. That means he did get help. Because if you didn't get no help, it means that you got help. So I know it's just language, and I know I sound like an ancient cunt and some sort of pedantic English teacher, but I do like the fucking language of English, and I like it used properly. But hey, by now, you probably know I'm a bit of a fucking self-opinionated twat, so, you know, I am aware of it, okay? I am aware of it, I promise. But I kind of not going to be holding back anytime soon, because it's kind of what I do. I mean, you know that, right? It is what I do. Anyway, so the Wacken Worldwide Virtual Festival, did anyone see that? It was just weird for me. I mean, Creator basically looked like they were playing a show inside a video game. That's the only conclusion I came to. This is no criticism of the VACAM organisers. It's no criticism of Creator. I'm just look. I guess am I being critical? Yes, I guess I am. But I guess the point I'm making is, oh, what a surprise. A virtual festival isn't as good as a real one. I mean, I'm pointing out the fucking obvious. I mean, and again, listeners of a certain length will probably be used to me doing that as well. But it just looked mad. It looked crazy. And I know, you know, a lot of people have said, oh, you know, you're going to do a live stream. Not every band can do a live stream. Live streams do require a certain amount of technical work. I mean, my band, for instance, we've got 5 people in all sorts of different parts of the country, one in a lockdown part of the country. So for a start, that's like, yeah, that means no live streaming going on. Then even if you get everybody together, you've got to hire a venue. You can't do it in a rehearsal room, so it's got to be in a venue. You've got to have a lighting rig, you've got to have a sound rig, you've got to have a sound man. You need at least 3 camera people. Then you need an ability to stream it. Then you need a platform to stream it on and a way of charging for it, because it's going to cost money to put on, so you need to make enough money back to cover those costs, and preferably make some money to help you live and pay bills. So it's not that, why not just do a live stream gig? That's great. Some people say that. Yeah, just do a live stream. Yeah, just do a live stream gig. Why don't you just learn to fly? Yeah, because that's, why don't you just hire a limousine for a year? Oh, can't afford it. Well, guess what? Same response from me. We can't afford it. But there you go. A little bit of whinging there. Do apologise. You didn't tune in for whinging, did you? I did say tune in. I did it on purpose. It's an old gag. If it doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry about it. But I tell you what, while we're on virtual festivals, I have to say this. I've had enough of quarantine cover versions. I'm beyond caring who is playing, whatever unlikely combination of musicians are playing, and what song they're playing. I'm beyond that, Oh, look, there's one of them in his garden. Oh, and look, there's somebody else in a different part of another building. Oh, look, the screen's split into 4. It's done. It's done, guys. It's done. But that's me. I've had enough, and I'm pretty much not going to watch anymore. Really, it's becoming too much. And Ozzy says that he's not going to do any more gigs with Sabbath. He's done with it. He's finished with it. It's over. He's bored with it. Great, mate. Same as everybody else. Pretty much, yeah. So I'm absolutely cool with that. And to be honest, Ozzy is not looking well at the moment. And given the pandemic, will we ever see Ozzy Osbourne on stage again? Don't know. I'd like to think we will, but I'm not sure. So, from one legendary vocalist to another, not myself, obviously, Rob Halford. Yep, Rob Halford, not only with a book out, is doing that thing that singers tend to do that no one else gives a shit about. That's right, putting a solo album out. But it's not just any old solo album. It's going to be a blues solo album. So thanks for letting us know, Rob. Absolutely zero interest in that whatsoever. But go ahead. That's cool. I mean, like he's going to listen to me at all. Quite rightly. Do what you like. Do absolutely what you like. Anyway, we then have the next one is possibly, well, it is very weird, and it involves Metallica and German football team Bayern Munich. So, yeah, I know, weird, right? Because I like football and I like Metallica. But which one's best? Fight! There's only one way to find out. Fight. Yeah, again, if you're in on it, you're in on it. Hang on, a bit of water. So, when they won the Champions League, that's Bayern Munich, not Metallica. Bayern Munich won the Champions League. They tweeted out some footage of a couple of their players and amazing stats records that they'd broken in the Champions League. And the music backing it was, I don't know which track it was, but it was from S&M 2 by Metallica. And obviously somebody in the Metallica camp had picked up on this, and Metallica tweeted at Bayern Munich congratulating them on their Champions League win, and clearly somebody had been doing their stats, and right, here it is. Hang on, bear with me a second. Through the miracle of the pause button, I'm going to give you the proper full story. Well, I hope. So, how's this, eh? Actual fucking research. So, the tweet reads from Metallica: "Congrats to FC Bayern for winning the treble this season, and also to Robert Lewandowski and Serge Gnabry for becoming the most goal-dangerous duo in Champions League history. Good luck in the upcoming Bundesliga season." I mean, whichever way you look at it, that's pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive, being right across every single aspect of the internet is pretty impressive. And yeah, I just thought it was a really, really nice story. But again, it's just somebody in the Metallica camp is so on the ball. And I tell you who else is on the ball. That's Michael Sweet. Michael Sweet of Stryper, who this week, not this week, a few weeks ago, September the 5th, in fact, Michael Sweet reacts to controversial review of Stryper's new album. It's incredibly unfair and a blatant attack on our faith. Earlier this week, Blabbermouth published a review of Even the Devil Believes from veteran UK heavy metal journalist Dom Lawson, in which he gave the LP 4 out of 10 rating, praising the record's multiple anthemic refrains and glorifying indulgent solos, but also saying constant references to God's love and the power of prayer, and basically he criticised it. Now, you are free to do that in the modern world, right? And he said, to buy into Stryper's musical world, you also have to be able to ignore the fact that the most religious thinking is instinctively reactionary, rooted in irrational fear, and is therefore entirely contrary to both the spirit of rock and roll and everything that heavy metal is supposed to be about. Frankly, it's a major turn-off. Ultimately, you can try and kid people that worshipping skyfarers is a shrewd pastime, but it just isn't. And as much as Stryper deserve applause for sticking to their guns, it's almost impossible to listen to the Even the Devil Believes without wishing that Satan would arrive and liven things up a bit. Metaphorically speaking, of course, I'm not mad. So, now, you might think that's a bit over the top, but Sweet's reply: we can take negative reviews, trust me, we've had more than our fair share over the years, yep, but a few on this fucking podcast, but to base a review on hate and discrimination against our faith and beliefs in 2020 is just not acceptable. We live in a time when rights are fought for everyone, as they should be. Why should our rights be any different? What do you think? Is this review fair or discriminatory? He goes on to say, I think it's incredibly unfair, and I think in 2020 it borders on illegal. It really does. You see people out there on the streets fighting for their rights. But my point is, people are there really fighting for their rights, and yet this guy takes a dump on our beliefs, and that's okay. In 2020, that's acceptable. That's okay. It's not okay. I read it and I just thought, nah, you're not going to wipe your boots on us. You're obviously a hater. And he goes on to say that basically he's not very happy. The reason why it upsets me is so much because of the low rating, but more is because of blatant attack on our faith. Well, the more I thought about it, I posted because at first I was frustrated, I guess somewhat angry, I guess you could say that, but then I thought about it and I thought, how sad, this guy hates us so much. Well, you kind of missed the point there. He didn't hate you, he hates the constant references to God and religion, so you've personalised that because it's your music. And what's even funny, almost comical, is the review only fuels the fire in a good way. Well, that's great. So what you're saying there is, it's quite comical and it fuels the fire. Well, you can't have it both ways. Yeah, you can't be, I'm having my beliefs trampled on and this is virtually illegal, and then say, but it's even funny, almost comical. I mean, which one is it? Have a fucking angle and have a stance and stick to it. For him to write a review like that just to be nasty, for me, that's not a good reviewer. I don't take anyone like that seriously. Again, earlier you were referring to how it was almost illegal. Pick a fucking argument. He says, it's funny, he briefly mentions Satan in the article. I forgot in what context. But obviously, you look at his reviews, he's into the real dark stuff, and that's fine. Now, if somebody isn't into Stryper, it doesn't mean they're a Satanist, okay? I cannot stand Stryper, and I don't listen to death metal. So I don't get what the point. I don't listen to any satanic bands, and I never have really. Probably Venom is the closest I've ever come. So that's a very lazy fucking conclusion to come to. But at the same time, we have a lot of Satanists and atheists who are fans of the band. Oh, a lot of Satanists and atheists. Really? You've done some market research? And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Oh, great. I'd love to see the figures. Where are they? Oh, the research I mentioned earlier? Yeah, you haven't done it. We meet them worldwide, come face to face with them, do interviews with them. Huge fans who are Satanists and atheists. Oh, come on. Really? Can anybody ever remember reading a review where the reviewer was a Satanist? Because that should be in the review somewhere. I mean, the interview somewhere. I've interviewed with leaders of the Satanic Church, and they're like, man, I love soldiers. It's my favourite. So what is your point? Maybe we snubbed Dom in some autograph signing line or something. Oh, and then he's gone on that. He's really a fan, and we must have pissed him off, Rue. Yeah. It's just fucking ridiculous. And no, it's not discriminatory. It's one person's opinion, like any review, okay? In fact, it's discriminatory to say that the review is discriminatory just because you got a bad review. But do you know what? Who gives a fuck? I have given this I've given it as much oxygen as I am for now, because I don't normally do this, but what I am going to tell you is that the next Talking Bollocks you will be hearing from Dom Lawson. The interview is already, as we say in the trade, in the can. I probably should have done that whole story before the Dom Lawson interview, instead of Kragun's interview. But that is the way things have worked. In other words, I have put things in the wrong order, and now it's too late to change them. That's enough for me. Enough whinging, enough prattling. So remember, Dom Lawson's coming up next. Well, not next. Well, next. That's something else as well. The other day, someone said to me, it was a Tuesday, and they said, let's do it next Thursday. And that was great. Okay, speak to you in 2 days. No, next Thursday. Well, it's Tuesday today. The next Tuesday, it's Tuesday today. The next Thursday, and Thursday's what I meant. I've completely fucked this up, right? It's Tuesday. They said next Thursday. I said speak to you in 2 days, and they said no, next Thursday. And I was like, well, it's Tuesday today. The next Thursday that occurs on planet Earth is in 2 fucking days. So that is next Thursday. No, it isn't. Now, there will be people here going, oh yeah, that guy was totally right, you're a dick, Howard. And there's going to be people going, yeah, absolutely, Howard, that fucking really winds me up as well. And do you know what? That's just life. Anyway, hopefully that is the worst thing that you've got on your plate at the moment, is the whole next Thursday thing. So it's about time that we got onto the interview, because I've been prattling along way too long, a little bit longer than normal. My apologies for that. But hey, it's my fucking podcast, so, tough shit. Next up is Kragun Lum from the legendary Heathen. Now, they have an empire. They have an album out called Empire of the Blind. You can tell I'm fucking looking at it, can't you? They've got an album out called Empire of the Blind. You need to hear it. You need to track it down. You don't have to track it down. If you've got internet access, just put Heathen, Empire for the Blind, and there it will be, okay? It's not difficult these days. So go and check it out, because it is it's a Bay Area thrash record, unlike any other Bay Area thrash record. Had a great time chatting to Kragun, as you are going to hear now. This is Kragun and I chatting just a few days ago.
Hello?
Hello, is that Kragun?
It is. How are you?
I am very well. How are you, sir?
I'm okay, doing the best I can under the pandemic circumstances.
Yeah, that's got to suck. I mean, I feel your pain too. I mean, I'm singing a UK thrash band, Acid Rain, and we put our first album out for 29 years, and had to pull the tour to support it.
Yeah.
I'm a stand-up comedian as well, and had all of my shows pulled there. I'm actually about to do my first two since March this weekend.
Wow.
I know, so I'm excited.
Good.
But I know what it's like, dude. And at what stage, kind of in the process, did you think, you know what, this album's going to come out right in the middle of all this?
Well, the album was done actually. It was done in January, and the pandemic announcement was kind of like March time.
Yeah.
So the original release was planned for June, and we would have released the first single in April. So we basically had to make a decision on whether or not we wanted to release the album this year at all or not. It was postponed 3 months basically because retailers weren't taking any new music. And so we had to wait regardless. But we made fans wait 10 years, and we felt like we're not going to make them wait another year and sit, idly all year long. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we don't know how long this is going to go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I completely agree. I mean, we've released the album after 29 years, and if they're going to wait a year to see us, then so be it. But like you say, we still don't know how long this is going to last.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's looking like it's going into at least the beginning of next year. I saw some bands announced cancellations of tours that they had planned in like January, February. So, it's just it's even difficult to plan a tour right now. We're trying to reschedule dates that were booked for this year. And it's tough, man. We just don't know when we're going to be able to go over there, and if we're going to be allowed to travel freely through Europe. I mean, it's I guess it's a little bit there's that extra layer of complexity because we're from the U.S. and it's not like we're already European, and I think they'll probably look at things a little bit differently, possibly quarantines or vaccine required, who knows.
Yeah. I mean, it's well, one thing's for sure, it's up to other people to find out what goes on from here, because we've basically just got to deal with the consequences.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But I would imagine you're doing an absolute shitload of stuff like this.
Yeah, we're doing as many things as we can to promote the album right now. Nothing else we can do really. So we've been doing a lot of interviews. We're making a lot of promotional videos for Nuclear Blast. We're going to continue to try and promote it in sort of different ways, I think, than we're used to. We're making another video for another song that's going to come out later in October. We feel like we kind of have to remind people about the record because these days, everything is basically a short attention span, and people forget about things soon after they come out because the next thing comes out. So in this day and age of social media, we have to find ways to kind of remind people to check it out that haven't, or keep it sort of on the top of people's minds.
Yeah. It's it's the same thing that we're all facing at the moment, and it's trying to sort of stay engaged with people. And yeah, you've got a brand new album out. You're not able to play it. The only way to get across to people, how the band feels about it is interviews like this. And I like I said, I just feel your pain, because I'm sure you were really looking forward to playing these songs live.
Yeah, I mean, we had tours booked. I think we had 4 separate tours, 3 in Europe and 1 in South America, and we were basically going to be out on the road from April until about now. So it would have been 4 or 5 months worth of touring, and it's disappointing, but what else can we do? We have no control over it. So I guess the way we're looking at it is instead of dwelling on the negatives, we're just going to try and work on ways to stay positive and do as much as we can to promote the record however we can.
Well, you've been around long enough and in enough bands over the years to kind of really have the experience. Not that any of us have got an experience of what this is like, but you've at least, like I say, gathered over the years that, like you say, the only way to get through anything like this, in fact, the only way to get through being a band is staying positive.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like persistence. In some ways, we're like the cockroaches that just won't give up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just linger, but that's how you have to be if you want to continue to play music. It's a tough business, and it's definitely hard to make a living. This certainly doesn't help the situation. I actually feel really bad for the crew, and all of the venues, agents and promoters. I mean, all of these people, they don't have the same way to redirect and sell merch and do other things.
Absolutely.
So I feel bad for all of them.
I couldn't agree more. A lot of people saying, what can you bands do? Well, if you're not doing gigs, and it's like, yeah, well, we can put new merch out, and there's various things that we can do. And people are still, those people who do buy music are still buying music, and some people, because of lockdown, bought more music. But if you're a venue owner or a promoter or anything like that, there's absolutely zero you can do to generate any income.
Yeah, nothing at all. And so, I mean, that's really where the concern is. It's the same with all the sort of things that happen in the background of tours that nobody thinks about, like the bus companies and backline rental companies and all of those. I mean, they can't do anything.
Yeah, and then you've got, and then you're going to look at hopefully the venues manage to hang in there, because that's the key. Any live network is venues, and you really hope that as many venues as possible can survive. But that then makes that that some are going to go by the wayside, but there's still the same volume of bands out there. So it's going to be interesting for a few years, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people really are thinking about all the repercussions of this and how long it could possibly last. I mean, even next year, if things return to normal sort of in the second half of the year in terms of touring, every band on the planet is going to want to be out on the road, and there aren't going to be enough bus companies and backline and venues, and fans are going to have to choose between 2 or 3 shows that they want to go to in one night. It's going to be really tough.
I think,
the longer this stuff goes on, the tougher it's going to be.
Well, funnily enough, I was at the last live show I went to was the Bay Area Bites Back, which was Testament, and Death Angel and Exodus, and I got to be honest, I think that's the route to go. I think that will be a route to go down once things start freeing up. I think you're going to see basically headliners combining who may well have gone out and headlined on their own tours. I think you may well see headliners combining and saying, look, you're going to get the 2 headline acts together here, purely because, as you said, there's going to be everybody available. and there's only so much money to go around. People are strapped, so it does make sense to sort of, combine as many headliners on a bill as possible and sell places out.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of been seeing that over the last few years anyway.
Yeah.
But now I think more so, it's going to be even more important next year, the year after. I mean, who knows how long for bands to sort of, join forces, like you said, and try and put together the most appealing, tour package possible.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, this is. I think we've pretty much covered the lockdown, and if we're not careful, we're probably both in danger of pissing each other off. Let's talk about happier things, which is, I have to say, Empire of the Blind. I mean, look, I'm in a thrash band who put an album out for the first time in 29 years. So your mere 10 years, I laugh at your mere 10 years. but even so, any work that's been put together over that period of time, it must have been, a labour of love at times. How do you feel? That boring old question. Sorry to do this to you. How do you feel about the album now?
I mean, I'm really happy with it.
You should be, man. You should be. It sounds fucking great.
Thanks. I mean, we worked really hard on it. It was definitely a labor of love at times. Everybody put in killer performances on the record, and we focused a lot on, the songwriting, this time, probably more than ever before. And it's great to finally have it out. I mean, some of these songs have been in existence for 8 years now.
Right.
I started writing in 2012 when we signed with Nuclear Blast. So it's great to get the beast off my back and get it out to people for everybody to hopefully enjoy.
Yeah, I know the feeling when you've had those songs kicking around, quite a while, and finally getting them out. But by the same token, it does allow you to really trim all the fat off everything and get it how you want it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm super picky when I write anyway, but I went back in and, made subtle changes and in some cases ripped songs apart and rewrote them to make them better. I think that's one of the things for us. It's one of the reasons why this band has been so slow over the years in terms of releasing material. It's because we're really picky. And, we throw away a lot of riffs, because they aren't great and we want great. So, just something that's sort of average, we just can't be happy with it. We had one song that we wrote for the album and left it off because it was kind of like, it's not there yet. It needs more work. So, we're just happy to have something out. And, if this pandemic continues, then, we might surprise the world and release another album in less than 10 years.
Wow. That's some bold shit you're stating there. I'll be holding you to that. You'll have to do an interview with me in less than 10 years.
Well, the goal is actually in 2 years, but we'll see. We'll see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, but you know what? If there's one thing I've learned over the years, it's that having a deadline is always a good idea. Yeah,
well, and I mean, frankly, I've had 10 years and I have a lot of material, so it's not like, we're starting from scratch after the record. I mean, there's already stuff that's more or less ready to go, and in some cases. So we'll see. We'll see how things pan out. We don't like to rush anything around here.
Yeah, look, fair enough. I mean, where do you kind of sit on Heathen's legacy, as it were, or kind of place in things? Because you always, it's a band that the name always seems to get left out of the conversation, and it's literally like every single band you've probably ever played with gets a mention, and you guys get left off. I mean, that's how I feel. is that a reasonable perception, or or are you kind of happy with where the band sits in the scheme of things?
No, that's a reasonable perception. I mean, I think definitely from Lee and Dave's perspectives, but also from mine, having been a fan up until I joined.
Yeah.
Heathen has never really got its due.
No.
And I think some of that has been bad timing. In maybe one case, it was bad decision. But I think if Victims of Deception was released in '89 instead of '91, then I think that the band would have been held in a higher regard. I think just that first album did so well, and then they waited for 4 years in between records, and then when they released Victims, it was kind of like right at the end, and things were sort of starting to shift towards what I call more rhythmic metal, Pantera, Chaos AE era, Sepultura, all of the new metal kind of stuff that came in, and for a band like Heathen that has a lot of melodic content, that was sort of not that popular at the time for metal. So it's, I think that's part of it. I hate it. I'm wearing a Murder in the Front Row t-shirt right now, but I watched the documentary and I was like really disappointed that they didn't even mention Heathen. Heathen was started in '84 and was honestly, it was right after the beginning. It was the year after the beginning. They used to play shows with Exodus, for the first Exodus tour. So it was disappointing to see the band not get mentioned and other ones that came after get mentioned. But, lack of consistency in terms of output of material. I don't know. Who knows? It could be anything. Maybe people don't like the melodic stuff in thrash metal quite as much. It's hard to say. Heathen is known as a thrash metal band, but I don't think any of us really see it that way. We see it just as a metal band, and we're definitely Bay Area thrash, but there's a lot more sort of to it, So I think maybe it's a combination of things, but we surely would like to see the band held up in the same regard as some of the others in the genre.
Yeah, and it's like I said, Heathen always seem to be left out of the conversation, and I like you said, but I think you might be onto something. When you say the more melodic overtones, because it's weird. Like you say, yes, we are a Bay Area thrash band, but yes, we do have, slightly more melodic than other bands, and that does seem to, whether it is that or not that has kind of set you aside, but you do seem to have that side to you that maybe more than any of the others.
Well, yeah, having Dave, he can sing anything.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where for creativity, it allows us to do anything that we want, and so we do. This band doesn't really have any rules or anything. So we might have a really fast thrasher, but we also might have a ballad, and we're not afraid to do different things with with our music. And I don't know. It seems, at least over the years, it seems like there have been more and more rules in thrash metal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Thrash metal was never about rules. It was always about breaking the rules. So it's kind of like, fans. Some fans seem to have these preconceived notions of what the thrash band should be doing.
Yeah, the thrash checklist.
Yeah, and that's okay. But that's only one element of the music. What tuning we're in and what, how fast our songs are or whatever. It's like that stuff doesn't matter. And variety is important in a record. You want to have variety of tempo and types of songs and all of that kind of stuff. Or else you're just playing, the same type of song over and over again, which is okay. I mean, I like a lot of albums that are like that, but those aren't necessarily the albums that end up, being the ones where you're like, man, I want to go back and listen to that again. And that's the kind of album that we want to make, frankly.
Absolutely. And also, I mean, that's always been a part of my sort of theory for, thrash kind of, people say it didn't die, but, it went into a coma. And it was, people say that death metal sort of came along and killed thrash. And I've always thought it wasn't a case of death metal came along and killed thrash. Thrash killed thrash because everyone basically stopped innovating. And death metal bands and grindcore was all coming around, and they were trying all sorts of stuff. Whereas thrash, we'd been very much, everyone's going to have a ballad and there's going to be a song about how we're damaging the earth, and we just reached a time where stuff it stopped innovating.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's part of it, and then I think there's another part of it too, where it wasn't just the innovation; it was the craft of it. I think when you're in a position where you have to deliver a new album every year or even two, like the bands used to do, it becomes harder to get the classic stuff in there. Sometimes it's more about finishing the record than it is about making something great. So it's a balance. I mean, some bands have been able to do it masterfully, and others not so much. So, but that innovation, I think that's really important, and I think it was missing. And it, in some ways it has been for a while. It's tough to reinvent a band, without having the fan base run away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I totally throw my hat in with that. I think I'm amazed by bands who are constantly, challenging their audience and like really changing and seeing, always being surprised at how many people go with them. But I don't think thrash is necessarily that kind of genre. But there is clear, there is clear light and shade, on your album. There are, there is, there's an atmosphere to it. Do you know what I mean? I really appreciate that as an old school listener, because there's plenty of albums that come out that are just, 10, 11, 12 tracks of, inverted commas, brutal thrash. And it's like, yeah, great. But, there's no ups, there's no downs, there's no, everything's black and white, there's no grey. And it's just nice to have something where there's a few more moods available.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what we wanted to do was make an album like those classics that, we grew up on, where there's a real beginning and an end.
Yeah.
And
a journey.
It takes you on a journey throughout the record. And just when you think that there's a lull, it's like, boom, you're back. It's a lot of that stuff is just, it's being conscious of what types of songs you've written already for a record. It's being conscious of what the track listing is and the order of the songs. It's a lot of things. And the album format has kind of dwindled over the years as streaming has become more popular. People are listening to songs rather than albums. And so bands have been focusing less on making an album, and in the sense of like a classic album, and it's more now just kind of a collection of songs.
Yeah, totally agree.
And I think that's disappointing in a lot of ways. Those albums, when I was a teenager, man, bands were competitive with each other, and they were trying to make a better album than the other bands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Out. And nowadays it's like, we have to make a record so we can go on tour, and it's not the greatest, but and that's, to me, that's sad. It's sort of like degrading the art form, and at the same time, it's hard to survive and make a living playing this kind of music. You know, we're basically traveling T-shirt salesmen. So,
Yeah.
you know, we just, some bands just they have to do what they have to get back out on the road. So.
Oh, Matt, look, I tell you what, dude, don't listen to any interviews with me, okay, about my band and our album, etc., because I've ripped off everything that you've just said.
Or maybe I ripped you off.
Yeah, maybe, but no, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't. I mean, I'm literally on the podcast. I'm saying, look, I'm sick of all of these 5 out. I'm sick of all these 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10 thrash albums. You know, let's let 10 out of 10. You know, go big or go home. Don't just stick an album out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of always been Heathen's attitude. Lee likes to say that fine wine takes time.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
You know, it's true. There's only so much you can do in a day, and sometimes crafting a song takes a long time, you know, and other times it comes right out. You just never know. But we don't like to force anything. It's got to be good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we're staying in touch with our fans on Facebook and doing some Facebook Lives, and people are saying, "Oh, you know, because there's a lockdown, you're writing an album." No, and that would be the worst reason ever to write an album.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, oh yeah, we're going to write it just because we've got some spare time. Well, no, you know, if you ain't feeling it, you ain't feeling it, and you know, during lockdown and this craziness. Haven't felt like creating anything.
Well, yeah, and plus, you know, when you create something and you spend all that energy, I mean, I don't think people realize, like, at some point when you finish the album and you have that wave of relief, you have zero desire to be creative because you just gave everything you had to what you made, you know, the album that you just made. So, I mean, we finished the album, you know, back in January, but I spent a year working on it, and after that I was tapped out creatively. And right now, you know, maybe 9 months later, I'm just starting to get some ideas, you know, like creative ideas. Of course, I have no time to do any of that because I'm promoting this album. But you know, when the ideas and the spark is there, that's when you go for it, you know. But just writing something when you don't have anything, it's just, I mean, you can write stuff, but it won't be great.
Yeah. Well, that's well. I was saying, you know, when you're in that cycle, you know, you write, you pre-produce, you record, you release, you tour, and we're at that stage. We're at that stage of we should be on tour. Because and so you know, that's where we are, and just because we're not, we're still in that cycle of the record. So that's where you are. It's like, you know, you start writing a new record when A, it starts flowing, and B, you're sick of playing the new record.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's you know, and we haven't had a chance to play one single note of it. Well, we have done 4 gigs, but I mean, you know, other than that, it's like, no, I want to get out there and play this stuff, not write a whole new fucking record.
Yeah. Well, but, you know, I mean, at some point, you know, if this lingers on, like I'm just going to start working on the next one.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, there are a lot of bands that are holding their records. They finished like around the same time that we did, and they're holding them until next year when they can tour. And I'm actually wondering if they're going to get to tour next year.
Yeah, they hope they're going to get to tour.
To the extent that they think they are. And I'm wondering if maybe it would have been better for them to release the record and not be sitting on it, and then, you know, ultimately maybe work on another one, and keep the momentum going once they release something. It's going to be tough. It's no roadmap for what's going on right now in terms of what to do or not to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Although I still think you're right on that. I think anybody who's got an album in the can, it's like, look, just put it out, because there is absolutely, if somebody said to you tomorrow in a record label, right, when's the best time to put this out? It's like, well, no one's got a clue.
Yeah, I mean, we're in like uncharted waters right now in terms of what to do. And I remember discussing it with Nuclear Blast, like, hey, what do we do here? And basically, made the decision with the label, like, let's go ahead and release it, and put it out and do the best that we can with promotion. I wanted to get it out when people needed to hear music. They need entertainment. I mean, I know personally, I've run out of science fiction shows to watch. So, you know what I mean?
Man, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I've become a real hard. I've been the worst Netflix critic ever. Now something up 4 minutes in, and no, get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, until October rolls around and the new seasons of shows start, like, I got nothing to watch.
So are you a big movie guy, a sci-fi guy?
Yeah, I'm a big sci-fi nerd. I'm a huge. Since I saw Star Wars when I was 5, I've been a huge science fiction fan. So.
Look, dude, there's also I do a movie podcast called, this is Talking Bollocks, and I do a movie podcast called Movie Bollocks. Got to have you on.
Cool.
Yeah, we can just talk shit about movies. There's no. It's so different from talking about music.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not missing going to the theater necessarily. I mean, that's kind of gotten to be a less of an interesting experience now that everything's at home, and I have surround sound at home, so I still like going to movies in the theater, but I mean, I've always loved watching movies and science fiction shows and stuff. There's been some great ones that have come out recently, so I'd be happy to talk to you about them.
Oh, definitely, man. Look, I think I'm probably a bit like you. I will make a trip to the cinema if I think, I've got to see that on a big screen. But other than that, I'm pretty much not going.
Yeah, I mean, I still, I still watch stuff on Blu-ray, and not everything's streaming.
Absolutely,
I'm an old school guy. I like to buy things, in physical media. I still buy albums.
Oh, look, Blade Runner 2049 on Blu-ray looks and sounds incredible.
I have it sitting right next to my Blu-ray player. Hey. I haven't watched it yet, but I have it.
Oh man, honestly, well, I'm full on geekery. I still have an old 3D TV which I don't want to get rid of because they don't make them anymore. So I've still got a Sony old school one, and I've got that movie on 3D as well, and it's just
cool.
It's insane, man. It's absolutely insane. But it's just like chewing up any kind of entertainment, just trying to pass the time, really.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems to me like fans want new music, and when bands are holding their albums, not everybody's holding them. A lot of bands have decided to release them as planned, but there's a need for entertainment right now, and so if we can get more people to pay attention to the Heathen album because it's out now, I mean, whatever works, we're happy to do it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, it's. And also I've heard about bands trying to be creative with how they're releasing it as well. I read a story of a band who's planning to release basically a whole album, but they're just going to release one song at a time with a video, and then when they're all out, they'll do a physical product release.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I just think, do you know what? That might be a way. I mean, you've got 11 tracks on an album. You put out one a month. You really are kind of dragging out the exposure a lot more than if you just drop an album.
Yeah, I mean, the labels are starting to shift towards the singles idea, and I think really that they're taking a cue from the pop and hip hop and all the other artists where they're just releasing singles. And it's strange, but when people are paying, when their attention span is short and everything's streaming anyway, releasing a single on a regular basis is not necessarily a bad idea. It's not how we were, sort of raised to make music.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not opposed to it. If the label said, hey, after this record, let's release a single or whatever, I would say, okay, and I'm talking about something new, that's not on the record. I mean, I'd be totally okay with that. We're kind of halfway doing that, where we're thinking about making videos for each song and releasing them just to kind of remind people about the album that's already out. But we will have done, 3 videos by the time this airs. I'm sure that the third video will be out tomorrow. So, it's uncharted waters. We'll just do whatever we can.
Yeah, man.
Whatever we can to survive.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, I think anybody who's trying anything different, or ways of releasing and things like that, it's now is the time to try it, surely, because
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there was any time to experiment and see what works and doesn't work, it's right now, because
well, I mean,
we can't do anything else.
Well, if you look at it, I mean, haven't we always been told at school that historically, whenever civilizations go through wars or any great time of hardship, that's when it's the greatest time of innovation as well, because everybody's working extra hard to try and get through whatever it is. So you never know, there might be an impact from everybody trying to just trying different things, different ways of releasing stuff, that we come across something new. We come across the answer, because let's face it, everybody's looking to try and see what the future looks like. Yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to think outside the box right now on almost anything, in terms of promoting the album. I like to stay busy, so I mean, I'm going to release a guitar book for the new album. Actually, it's available digitally already. Before the album was even out, I had that ready to go. I think we're going to see a lot of bands doing interesting things with their merchandise. Things that metal bands sort of traditionally haven't done, like puzzles and any number of things that will be different and outside the box. So, we're going to have a Heathen beer that will be announced hopefully today. And just anything to keep people's attention a little bit. It's tough these days.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well. I feel free to try this out. I came up with the idea of doing a vocalist's commentary version of our album. So basically, I provided it for subscribers to the podcast, who are also. There's also sort of like Acid Rain fans who subscribe as well to get behind the scenes stuff. And basically, it's me listening to the album and talking about, right, okay, this is how this song together, and listen out for that, and this is what happened in production, and that's how we got that sound. And sometimes I do a little bit of an intro of a song, but basically just kind of talking through the album from a production, all from a creative point of view. From, it might be how it was written to how it was recorded to an idea we had in the studio. And all it involved was just me listening to the album and then marrying up my commentary track and the album, and people have been absolutely loving it, because
that's cool.
They're hearing the history of songs, and they'll hear bits in the album that they hadn't heard before, or they'll hear things that now they know why it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, I've been thinking about doing some kind of I don't know whether it will be a video or what, where I break down the songs. Heathen has a lot of what we in recording call overdubs, but we call them layers.
Yes.
And we have a lot of guitar layering that we do.
Yeah.
That many of the other thrash bands don't do, and I think I was thinking maybe it would be interesting to sort of break those down and show people how they fit on top of each other, because some of them are ear candy volume. You'd miss them if they were taken away, but you don't necessarily hear them prominently.
Yes.
And, I think that kind of stuff is, it's interesting for the fans that like that stuff. I mean, the commentary idea is a great one. I might steal that from you too.
But feel free, man. Feel free, because it's like, we're all in this. We're all in this together. We're going to help each other out. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the thing is, because it was a purely because it's a purely audio thing. The way I did it is you've got the album playing in the background, so so it is kind of like listening to the album. There aren't the distractions that your eyes give you if you're watching the same thing. So that's why I wanted to do it from an audio perspective. And yeah, no, it's worked well, man. Look, I'm gonna stop going on about my idea, okay? Because this is your interview, not mine.
It's a good one. Talk about it.
well, I said feel free to fucking steal it. Now, look, mate, have you got to run off, because I've got you for another 5 minutes, haven't I? No,
I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, great. Because I have got some subscriber questions for you, but that can they can wait. So when it came to actually recording, you say the album was finished in January. When was the actual recording finished? Because I'm presuming if it was finished in January, then mixing started a good while before that.
Yeah, I mean, the process of recording this album was not sort of the normal. It wasn't the normal recording process. So
right.
I did pre-production here in my studio. All of the songs were basically demoed out with, programmed drums and guitar tracks and vocals and everything. And then we took that and went and recorded the drum tracks. And then I went back and made changes to the guitars based on maybe things that Jim, our drummer, did. And sort of, it was sort of this interesting, like, fluid recording. Usually when bands go in, they put down some kind of scratch guitars and record drums, and then, record the guitars and bass, and then everything was done in kind of an order. We didn't really do that. We were trying to be flexible in terms of creativity. And so being able to go back and make little changes here and there, or re-record parts, or add things during the process was really cool. We did the pre-production mostly first half of the year, and then we started recording the drums in September. And then we did the vocals and bass in a session about a week long in October, and then we did another one in November, where we did Lee's stuff and the rest of the vocals. And so we were done in recording in December, and it was basically mixed right after and mastered and ready to go. And we delivered the music in January, and the artwork and everything else. So we were a little behind schedule from what we needed to be for our April, release date, but then it all got pushed back anyway. So it was a different process than this band has done before. It was sort of more of that modern recording, where people can be in multiple locations recording, and everything syncs up and everything. So we did it in 4 different studios, in 3 different states. So it was a cool process, and we loved working with Zeus. He did a killer job on the record. We wanted to have sort of that mixture of classic late 80s, early 90s analog recording with more modern production. And I think we were able to capture it.
Well, I think we worked exactly the same way for the first time ever, so that's an interesting crossover.
Yeah.
And I think when you spend that length of time working on something as well, I don't know about you, but I really felt we've developed a real strong bond with our producer, because it's almost like he was the kind of constant in it.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I was the only one present for all of the recording because I recorded the guitars here, but Zeus was there for everything else, and we were on the phone all the time talking about stuff and working on the songs. And I mean, he and I are really good friends, you know, just going through this process. I also was at the same time was having him mix albums from a couple of other bands that I work on with the sort of the management side of things. So, you know, including Raven, I managed them for about a year when they were mixing their new record, which sounds great. So, you know, we definitely developed a strong bond, you know, working with him, and I would love to work with him again on the next record.
Ah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, because you know, you've got to have somebody that you rely on, and who, more importantly, whose judgment you trust, but also they feel that they can come out and say, look, you know, I don't think this is up to scratch, or, you know, whatever they have to say.
Yeah, I mean that, and you know, I mean, honestly, it can be really hard just to find a producer that understands what you want and how to do it. And I think if you can find somebody like that, and which we did, and then on top of it have that level of sort of trust, you know, for him to say, I don't think this is going to cut it, or I think the arrangement would be better if you cut this part out, kind of a thing, which he did. And he was right. You know, I mean, a lot of that kind of stuff it's important, and bands don't always have a filter when it comes to their music because they're so close to it, you know, creatively.
I was just going to say, you know, we're too close to it, and it takes somebody else who's just that little bit further back, and they can see the wood for the trees, you know, and they can say, no, just change that, trust me, and you look back on it and think, I'm really glad I listened. Yeah. Well, you need somebody who's a third party sometimes, that's a little more neutral in the. Of course, they're not completely neutral if they're working on the project, but they're able to see things that you can't because you're right there in the middle of the forest. Yeah, literally. And am I right in assuming that you handle pretty much most of the social media for the band as well?
Yeah, I'm kind of in this weird position where I'm in the band, I manage the band, and most of the other guys in the band are how do I put this lightly, technologically deficient. So I do a lot of the social media stuff. I'm very thankful that Nuclear Blast has a great social media person that helps me with a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, even the videos that we make for promotion, I mean, I'm filming myself and editing myself and making the videos, and you know, we don't have a lot of support in that area because I am managed. So I basically just do it because I have to, and I think that kind of comes from my video game background. I spent over a decade working for Activision making video games, and in the early years there, we didn't have big budgets, and we had to do multiple jobs. So I would, you know, produce a video game, but I would also have to edit the dialogue and edit the curse words out of songs and all kinds of things. So that kind of thing is sort of normal for me at this point, you know, doing more than one sort of job with whatever I'm working on. And I'm okay with it. It's, you know, it's tiring sometimes, but what isn't?
Yeah, And yeah, look, yeah, exactly, and I know what you mean about it gets tiring. But I'm kind of like listening to that, and all the efforts that's required, and you're across everything and making the videos. I'm interested. Please tell me you didn't leave the gaming industry before all the money arrived.
Oh no, I actually I was super lucky. I got into the video game industry right at the tail end of the 90s, when it hadn't taken off yet. And then I started as a tester, and then I worked my way up, and I was a producer for Activision. I got to work on some of the Guitar Hero games, a lot of the action sports games that we had, like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I worked on a 007 game.
That's a classic,
Call
right?
of Duty game at the end of my career before I got laid off. But I was a victim of getting too old for the industry, kind of a thing. They wanted to go younger and cheaper.
Right.
I don't think it was a surprise that I got laid off right around my 40th birthday. But it's okay. I looked at it as a positive thing in a way. And I basically looked at it as an opportunity to go back and do what I really wanted to do, which was music. So I focused 100% on that. And actually that's what the track Sun in My Hand is more or less about, kind of going through working that job that's, while it was the best job I've ever had, it's not exactly what I wanted to do. And I was trying to climb the corporate ladder, and I hated it. And, I really just looked at it as a sort of transition time to go and try and reach for the stars, so to speak, and do what I wanted to do again. So I've been very fortunate to get to be in and play with, two of my favorite thrash bands of all time. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, look. Well, yeah. There's the. I have a tendency to always find a link between myself and whoever I'm interviewing, and there's the connection. Acid Rain. We toured with Exodus back on the Fabulous Disaster tour.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But way back in '89, which was absolutely awesome, I have to say. Peak of the old school days. That must have been awesome to get a chance to play in Exodus as well, and now to be so involved with Heathen. I mean, you're living quite a few fans' dreams, and quite a few people listening to this will be quite jealous, I would imagine.
Well, I mean, if you told teenage me that I was going to be able to be in one of these bands and play in both of them, and I manage both of them. So
wow.
I would never have believed you. It certainly was an awesome experience to get to play with Exodus. It was a daunting task. I was really worried at first about filling in for Gary because, honestly, those guys are like heroes to me from a fan's point of view. And to be able to play with them and tour the world and, they're good friends, and I had a great time doing it, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity to do it. So I definitely don't take it for granted.
No, and also filling in for Gary Holt, that just right off the bat, that offer is a serious underlining of how good you're seen as a guitarist on the scene as well. I mean, that's not short of a big old seal of approval right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, there were some people online that didn't like it, of course, and I mean, I understand. I'm a fan too, and so it's hard to think like, am I going to go see one of my favorite bands, but without the guy who's sort of basically the band leader? It's a difficult hurdle to overcome for a lot of fans, but I just basically did my best to replicate what Gary does to the best of my ability. I studied some techniques that he has especially for rhythm guitar. And, I play lead differently than he does, but I adapted my style, and I more or less just wanted to make it so that when fans closed their eyes, it still sounded like Exodus. That was my goal. And, I know I did my part and did my best. And there were a lot of fans that I think, a lot of fans that had only seen Exodus with me, some of the younger fans. So I think it's really cool that Gary's back playing with them, and that hopefully soon they will get to play more shows. They're working on a new record right now. So,
well, this is the funny thing about the industry, though, isn't it? It's a model for life. Yeah, there's some people complaining you in Exodus because you're not Gary Holt. That's not your fault. And then you've got Slayer fans complaining that Gary Holt is in Slayer, and they should have packed up after Jeff died. So none of us can win. There's always going to be people out there who don't like what you do, and as you say, all you can do is know that when you put your head on the pillow at night, you've done your best.
Yeah, that's part of it. And then the other part of it that people don't really realize is that, these guys don't have day jobs. They make their living playing music. And so they can't just sit around, they can't just sit around when somebody's doing something else. They still have to get to work. Yeah. So, if I was able to help those guys work and I was able to work, that's how I think you have to look at it. It's the only way you can look at it. Some bands, if they just sat on their hands when a member was playing with a different band, they would have to go get jobs and
I know, no, absolutely,
not be a band anymore. So
and especially when you've got the when you've had the responsibility of managing those two bands as well. That is something that you must be a glutton for punishment, dude.
Oh God. Maybe a little bit. I manage Exodus. I co-manage Exodus. I manage Heathen. I manage Defiance. I manage a younger band called War Curse that's going to be announcing their signing to a pretty cool metal label pretty soon. And it's. I managed Raven for about a year while they were working on their new record, Metal City. And, it's a lot of work sometimes. Artists are artists, and they are sometimes artistes.
Oh,
if
mate.
that makes sense.
Mate,
it's all right.
I know exactly what you mean. It's amazing any bands, have ever got together and actually managed more than one album. When you think of the concept of getting five or four or however many artists in a room together, and actually agreeing on anything and being able to spend time traveling around the world together and creating music, it's pretty amazing that, like I say, that anything ever comes out.
Yeah, it's kind of like which side of your brain do you use with a lot of the guys, and most of the guys that are playing music, if you're musical or artistic, you're using one side of your brain, and if you're good at math and accounting, you use the other side of your brain. So sometimes guys don't use both sides, or they prioritize one, and art is the focus, and logic goes out the window. And then we have, that's where management comes to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. Well, look, dude, can you just hold there? Cause, we're done for the main interview, but, I've got, a few subscriber questions for you, if that's okay. If you've got a few more minutes.
Yeah, no worries.
Awesome. Well, don't go anywhere, but for now, thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, that was great fun, as you can tell, because you listened to the interview. And obviously went off and did subscriber questions there, which is for patrons of the podcast and also of Acid Rain. If you sign up at patreon.com/Howard H. Smith, it will cost you $5 a month. You get your own private podcast with your own questions asked of guests. You can be asking Kragun, you could be asking James Murphy, you could be asking Max Cavalieri your own questions. And you get them in your own little podcast. You get the podcast early. You get all sorts of extras and behind-the-scenes stuff. We do a live podcast, well, kind of like a live podcast, live Zoom chat once a month as well. Loads of Acid Rain behind-the-scenes stuff. So if you're interested, sign up at patreon.com/Howard H. Smith. Okay. That was very, very cool. Really enjoyed that. Kragun was then very, very generous with his time. There's over half an hour of questions and answers that he did for subscribers, which was awesome, that they will listen to, that will not be coming from behind the paywall. That I did that with the James Murphy one, just to give you all an idea of what it consists of. But it was great fun. Really, as I said, generous with his time. Just a really nice guy, as you heard, and incredibly just steeped in thrash. Now, I am at this point not going to do what most other podcasts do, which is basically go on and on and on about the interview that you've just heard, because it irritates me when I listen to podcasts and, you know, the host, usually hosts, spend 10 minutes breaking it down. You just heard it. You know what the interview was. There's no need for me to keep going over and over and over because you just listened to it. So anyway, what this now becomes is the part of the podcast where I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for being bollockers. There's a phrase I haven't used in a long time. Thank you for being bollockers. Thank you for listening to the podcast, for engaging with the podcast. If you would be so kind, please share the podcast, tell people about it. You are the Talking Bollocks army. You are the people that will make Talking Bollocks bigger and better. And that means I can go and get even bigger and better interviews. And that, let's face it, is what it's all about. Okay? That and the rantings of a self-obsessed egomaniac cunt like myself. I mean, you know, let's be honest. Bit of a twat. I tell you what, I have got to tell you that I am in possession of one of the amazing Ace of Spades box sets that's coming out. It's incredible. I've got it in my hand at the moment. It weighs a ton. I don't even know where to start. It is so full of stuff. It's amazing, and I'm getting a completely new appreciation for Motorhead. I mean, they were never ever my favourite band, and Lemmy was never my favourite personality, and long-time listeners will know that. But I tell you what, that is rapidly changing. I realised that I read a book by Lemmy and completely got the wrong end of the stick, and I realised that everybody that I'm interviewing and speak to has just got the highest of praise for him as an individual. That is very rare in this industry. And you know what? I'm going to borrow a phrase from Jamie Jaster, and don't worry, it's not about blue pills and staying hard. I'm going to borrow a phrase from him. If you bring me new information, my mind can be changed. I will change my opinion. I'm not just going to have my heels dug in and stick to my opinion if it's clearly wrong. If there's clearly evidence that contradicts my standpoint, then I'm going to hold my hands up and go, okay, fair enough, I'll change my mind. But yeah, honestly, this box set is just incredible. The label sent it to me, so obviously, you know, the podcast starts with coming, you know, the Ace of Spades 40th anniversary edition coming out, and so it made a load of sense for me to actually have a box set and look at it. And honestly, if you're a Motorhead fan, you need to be really excited about the end of October, because this Ace of Spades stuff is just fucking unbelievable. Anyway, not everybody's going to be getting the box set. It is 150 quid, but bloody hell, it's worth it. Honestly, when you hold it in your hand and you see what's in it, it is worth it. And that brings me on to something, a comment on Acid Rain's Facebook page this week. And I know Metallica get a lot of hate for not being the band that they were when they recorded Master of Puppets, and obviously, everything that comes with that. And somebody suggested that the reason that bands like Metallica selling $230 bottles of whiskey, that is money that could be going to other bands. So it's Metallica making money at the expense of smaller bands. And I'd just like to point out that if you've got an issue with Metallica, that's fine. If you've got a bit of Metallica hate, that's fine. The reason you have that hate is because you loved them once and it's turned into hate. I understand that. They're not the band that you fell in love with, but they haven't been that band since then. They haven't been that band since the Black Album. That's 30 years ago. So you probably need to get over it and let it lie. Okay? Now, it's fine that you have that opinion. Okay? And it's fine that you have that terrible, tortured relationship with Metallica. You once loved them and now you hate them. But you can't apply Metallica selling bottles of whiskey for $230 to smaller bands not doing well. It doesn't work like that. You may as well... In fact, if you want to follow that thinking... The smaller bands wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Metallica, because they basically pretty much were what, let's not say created, but one of the forerunner for thrash metal, and kicked the door open for every other thrash metal band there's ever been. So from that point of view, any smaller bands in the genre owe their entire careers to the genre existing, therefore they owe it to Metallica. But I'm not saying, that's if you use that particular argument. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's not Metallica's fault that smaller bands might be struggling. Somebody buying a $230 bottle of whiskey off the Metallica website is very, very unlikely to be absolutely, waiting on edge for the new Heathen album, or for the new Acid Rain album, or for the new Anybody album. And not only that, but let's look at all the other things that fans of smaller bands are spending money on. Things like games, things like movies, things like alcohol. Well, all of that stuff can be blamed for people not giving money to smaller bands. I understand the concern for smaller bands. I'm fucking in one, right? But our job is to do the best we can with our resources and get people to hopefully part with some money for stuff that we've made, that we do, something like that. And that's the end of the argument. That's what we're all doing. It's a free marketplace, and that's what we're all doing. And that's what Metallica are doing. They're just doing it at a level that is beyond everyone else. And that's because they can. So, I don't have a problem here. I really don't, for once. Because, I'm afraid even before the pandemic, it was a case of just stick your fucking logo. Any band can put their logo on anything. If people are going to buy it, fingers crossed they will. Because the money is in physical products. You want people to buy it. And whether it's whiskey or a fucking, Metallica condoms, whatever it is, or it's fucking behemoth vibrators, you name it, right? Bands will put their logo on it and sell it if it helps keep their band alive and pay their bills. That's just the world we live in now. And on that, I mean, that's almost common sense coming from me. I mean, I'm just pointing out that that's the way it is. Okay, that is the way it is. It's not Metallica's fault. They ain't taking money out of anybody else's wallet. It's just not the case. It's a flawed argument, and one that comes from emotion, not from a rational place. Anyway, well, I hope you found that interesting and enlightening. Wherever you are listening to this, take care of yourself, use hand sanitizer, social distance, wear a mask. It's not like you're being asked to fucking jump through a massive hoop 10 feet in the air every time you go out. It's really not difficult. And your civil liberties are not being taken away. When you're at war, and we're at war with an unseen killer, yeah, curfews come into place. So for all those people going, oh, my grandparents fought for civil rights and now they're seeing being taken away. Well, when your grandparents were fighting for civil rights, yeah, when they were away at war fighting for our rights, we were under curfew, yeah, not lockdown, curfew back at home, and spending hours and nights, entire days in air raid shelters. Now, no, but now, of course, if that was the case, people would be out in the streets protesting, saying there's no real war, and then a bomb would drop on them, and that'd be the end of that. But because a virus is an unseen killer, doesn't mean we're not at war. And sometimes, unfortunately, we all have to give something up to make sure for the greater good. This is, for me, all about unity. It's not about individuality. It's not about individuals' rights. It's about unity. It's about us all coming together and working together to defeat an enemy that we can't see. And I'm as anti-establishment as anybody. I'll tell you to question everything. Yeah, not all conspiracy theories are completely mad, but at times like this, you've got to choose your moments, and it's about coming together. It really is. And if I lose listeners for saying this, then I lose listeners. But it had to be said. For me, I felt like it had to be said. Anyway, that aside, that's about as close to politics. It's not even politics. It's fucking public health, for fuck's sake. How can people be against public health? There was a protest in London yesterday, an anti-lockdown protest. Get this through your fucking heads. We're all anti-lockdown. None of us want to be locked down, but we understand why, and we're complying because it is necessary, because we listen to scientists. And we get our information from places other than YouTube. And let's face it, if this really was a massive conspiracy, wouldn't it be really disappointing if people like David Icke, and if you don't know who that is, please do look him up, were the ones who'd actually found out. I mean, Anyway, I've gone on far enough. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's face it, there's none of those are listening. As always, thank you very much for listening. Lots of bollocks has been talked, a load of bollocks in the last few minutes, and I hope you're all well. Take care of each other out there, and I'll speak to you with Dom Lawson in a couple of weeks.